Hello friends, I'm Swapna Shetty. In this session, we are going to learn about how to control transactions using JDBC and to use batch processing. So what is basically a transaction? A transaction is nothing but a single unit of interaction with the database. So in a transaction, a set of SQL statements are grouped logically into a unit and submitted to the database where changes are made permanent or undone only as a unit. So what is basically a transaction management? Every transaction has two boundaries, that is beginning of the transaction and end of the transaction. So a mechanism of controlling the transaction boundaries is nothing but transaction management. So Java.sql.connection interface has got three methods to deal with the transaction management in a JDBC application. That is set auto commit of boolean value and the commit method to commit the changes and the rollback method to roll back the updates made to the database. So to provide or to safeguard data integrity and consistency of enterprise data, we need to implement transaction management. So consider a scenario where online funds transfer, that is transferring funds from one account to other account through internet. So amount from one account has to be reduced and the amount in another account must be increased. That is, we need to pass two SQL statements. That is, first statement is we need to say update the account or the table name, set balance equals to balance minus amount where account number equals to S account number. That is, we need to write the first query to reduce the amount from the first table or the first account, and the second statement to add the amount to the second account. So assume that the first statement is executed successfully and due to some reason the second statement is not executed. So if transaction management is not used and a simple statement or prepared statement of JDBC is used to commit the SQL statements, then these statements are all in auto commit mode. Because when we create a connection object, that opens JDBC connection in auto commit enabled state. So the SQL statements make changes on the table data and these changes are made permanent at that instant itself. So this may result in loss of data in this scenario. That is, the table, the amount in the second table is not getting increased. So even if one of the SQL statements fails to execute for whatever reason it may be. So this can be avoided by using transaction management mechanism. So for that, first we need to specify the disabled state as set auto commit of false at the initial, or that is at the starting stage of the transaction in an application. Then we can make the changes permanent or discard them as required. So let's see an example of using transaction management. So for this, I create a class called transaction sample with a main method and within the package com.educators. So here first we need a connection to the database. So for that I write class.forName and driver manager.get connection. So this is throwing some exceptions. So handle those exceptions. So after connection is established, say I wanted to insert two records into the database. So for that I use statement interface. Statement st equals to con dot create statement. So import statement interface from java.sql package. Now using statement.execute update and passing the SQL command here and write insert statement, insert into EMP values. Let's say some 1 and some name like Kareem has to be inserted into the table. Similarly, I insert another record. Say some 2 is the employee name, and here I say Vamsi is name. So when I say this way and just close the statement and the connection objects, my changes will be updated into the database. But because when I create statement object, it opens the connection and auto commit mode. So first I say that con dot set auto commit of false, that is to not commit until I say commit. So when I say false and this inserted into the database, let's see first whether these two records will get inserted or not. So you can nowhere see 1 and 2 in the table. Now because I have changed that disabled state of set auto commit. So now when I commit, that is say con dot commit and then execute and then check in the database, you can see 1 and 2, Kareem and Vamsi got inserted. So this is how we maintain transactions in JDBC. So next is batch processing. So what is batch? Is what batch update is. Like batch updates is a facility given by JDBC using which multiple SQL statements, that is only DML statements like insert, update and delete, are grouped physically or grouped together physically and submitted at a time to the DBMS for processing as a batch. So java.sql.statement interface has got two methods for this purpose. One is add batch of string DML, which is used to add an SQL statement to the batch, and execute batch, which submits at a time all the SQL statements of the batch to the database. So when a statement object is created, in the background a list is associated with it. Initially the list is empty. When each SQL statement is encountered with add batch method, the statements are piled up in the list. So that is when I say add batch of insert statement, so the first entry in the list would be this query. Similarly, the second entry would be the second query. So a batch is nothing but it's a group of SQL statements. So this batch is not submitted to the database as long as execute batch method is not encountered in the program. When this method is called, at a time all the SQL statements of the batch are submitted to the server. But at server side only one by one statement is executed. That is only individual statements are executed. So the return type of this execute batch method is an integer array. That is, the size of the array depends on the number of SQL statements submitted to the database. So the first index of the array would be the number of records affected by the first SQL statement. The second index would be the number of records affected by the second SQL statement. So let's see an example of batch processing. So I create a class called batch update example. With a main method and in a package com.educators. So once a class is formed, I need a connection to the DB. So first establish a connection. Handle the exceptions. Now create a statement object, that is con.create statement would give me a statement. So using the statement object dot add batch of pass one SQL query. That is, here I would pass some insert into EMP is a table name, values of some values, like I have 23, so I pass 24 as the EMP name. Number and then the name as some Rajesh or Prasad. And I pass the second statement, that is st.add batch of update EMP set EMP number equals to EMP number plus 100. So I'm just changing the EMP numbers. What a semicolon. So two queries are added to the batch. Now I need to execute the batch. For that, st.execute batch, which returns an integer array. So I capture return an integer array, that is RE. Now I would just print that number of rows affected by first SQL statement. SQL statement is something like RE of 0, that is the first index. Similarly, the second index also, that is RE of 1. Finally, close the statement and the connection. So after creating a statement, I have added two SQL queries and then passed as a batch to the DBMS. So let's see the output: run as Java application. So the number of rows affected by the first SQL statement, that is insert, it is only one row. But by second row, I have just updated EMP and I have added 100 to all the EMP numbers. So 15 rows are available in the table. So 15 rows got affected. So let's check. This is my earlier table. Now if I run this, the EMP numbers got changed and Prasad is the value which has been added. So this is how we use batch updates. So that's all with this session. Thank you.